Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Thanks. I never thought working at Walmart would bring me the kind of memories that keep me awake at night. Back in 2022, I was 34, living in Dayton, Ohio, with my boyfriend Tyler and our two cats, Jasper and Willow. I had worked in retail since my early 20s, bouncing between grocery stores, pharmacies, and even a short stint at a furniture outlet. After the pandemic, I needed stability more than ever, so when Walmart offered me a position as a shift supervisor in their new 24-hour location, I took it. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was steady, and my coworkers seemed decent enough. I've always been the type who takes comfort in routine. I'd get home around 11 p.m., feed the cats, and crawl into bed by midnight. Sleep didn't always come easily. I had dealt with insomnia since college, but medication helped me stay steady. Tyler worked mornings as a mechanic, so we rarely collided in our schedules, but we made it work. That's why when I first got close to Hannah, one of my co-workers, it felt natural. She was in her early 30s, petite, with long black hair and a quiet voice. She was always polite, never dominating conversations, but she had this eagerness to connect that I noticed right away. Over time, our small break room chats stretched into grabbing late-night coffee after our shifts. I knew from the beginning that Hannah had her struggles. She was upfront about her diagnosis, schizophrenia, but she said she was stable on medication. Having worked around mental health patients during my part-time years in community support, I didn't flinch at that. If anything, I admired her for her honesty. She was shy, yes, but friendly in a timid sort of way, like she was always testing the waters before fully trusting people. By summer of 2023, she started opening up more. One night in the break room, I found her sitting alone, clutching her phone. Her hands were trembling. "You okay?" I asked, setting my soda on the table. She shook her head. "I don't know what to do. My landlord gave me 30 days to leave." I sat across from her. "Why? Did the rent go up?" Her eyes darted toward the vending machine, avoiding mine. "It wasn't my fault. I got confused one night. I walked into my neighbor's apartment by mistake. I thought it was mine. They freaked out, and because of my history, it just got blown out of proportion." I frowned but didn't push her. "That sucks. Where are you gonna go?" She shrugged, biting her lip. "I don't know. I can't afford a hotel. I've been crashing at my car sometimes, but it's not safe. I should have stopped there. I should have drawn a line. But something in me, guilt, sympathy, maybe just the instinct to help, overrode common sense. If you need a place to crash for a little while." I hesitated. "You could stay with me and Tyler. We've got a couch. It's not perfect, but it's better than your car." Her eyes widened. "Are you serious? You'd let me?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "But only temporary, okay? Until you figure something else out." "Of course," she said quickly, relief flooding her face. "Thank you, really thank you. You don't know how much this means." At the time, I believed I was doing something kind. Looking back now, it was the moment I let the nightmare into my home. Hannah moved in a few days later. She insisted the couch was fine, refused when I offered to buy a small bed, and quickly settled into her routines. She was a heavy smoker and coffee drinker, habits that grated against my fragile sleep schedule. The very first night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of the balcony door sliding open. When I peeked out, Hannah was standing outside in the dark, smoking. At 5 a.m., I heard the coffee grinder. The smell filled the apartment, and by the time my alarm rang at 6, I was already wide-eyed and exhausted. "Hannah," I said gently the next morning, "I need you to hold off on coffee until 6, okay? I really need sleep for my shifts." She smiled apologetically. "Sorry, I'll try." But try wasn't enough. The nights became a blur of clinking mugs, cigarette smoke drifting in, and the grind of beans before sunrise. I suggested prepping coffee the night before. She waved me off. "It's part of my routine. I need it fresh." Over time, small things piled up. She ate entire boxes of cereal in one sitting. leaving crumbs across the counter. Her hair gathered in clumps around the shower drain. Nail clippings appeared on the bathroom sink. My grandmother's old saucepan, one of the few heirlooms I owned, was scorched beyond repair after she used it to fry something and forgot it on high heat. The worst was the cats. Jasper and Willow, who usually greeted me at the door, began hiding under the bed whenever I got home. One night I found their water bowls bone dry. "Hannah," I snapped more sharply than I intended. "They need water, did you not notice?" She looked at me blankly. "I thought you'd take care of it." "They're living creatures," I said, my chest tight. "You can't just ignore them." She didn't reply, just looked away. The final straw came when I discovered my bottle of prescribed sleeping pills was half empty, far sooner than it should have been. I confronted her in the kitchen. "Are you taking my meds?" Her eyes widened, her face unreadable. "Why would you think that?" "Because they're gone, Hannah, and you're the only one here besides me." Silence, then softly, "I don't know what you're talking about." The lie was obvious, but what scared me most was how calmly she said it. A few days later, something happened that shattered the fragile trust entirely. I was at work when my phone buzzed. It was a message from an old classmate I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, didn't you say you were living with someone named Hannah? I don't want to freak you out, but are you sure that's safe?" I frowned. "Why?" "They sent a news article." My stomach dropped as I read it. Last year, Hannah had been arrested for breaking into her neighbor's apartment. She wasn't just confused. She had been found standing over a baby's crib holding a knife. Charges were dropped due to her mental health condition, but she was evicted immediately afterward. I felt my blood run cold. When I got home that night, she was sitting on the couch, sipping coffee. "How was your shift?" she asked casually. I forced a smile. "Fine." Inside, my thoughts raced. I had 30 days left on my lease before I moved into a new place with Tyler. 30 days suddenly felt like a death sentence. The weeks that followed were unbearable. Hannah ignored my requests for quiet. She left messes everywhere. Some nights she muttered to herself in the living room, her voice low and eerie. One night, Tyler and I woke to the creak of the bedroom door. I opened my eyes and froze. Hannah stood in the doorway, long hair obscuring her face, staring at us. "Hannah?" I whispered. She didn't answer. "What are you doing?" Tyler asked, his voice firm. Suddenly, she slammed the door shut and ran down the hall. My heart pounded. When I gathered the courage to step out, I saw it. A kitchen knife lying on the floor where she had stood. That was the moment I knew. She had to go. I asked my friend Melissa to come over for support. Together, we told Hannah she needed to move out. She didn't argue, didn't yell. She just stared at me and said flatly, "You disrespected me. You brought people into my space." It wasn't her space, it was mine. But the way she said it made my skin crawl. That night, instead of grinding coffee, she burned dry coffee grounds in a frying pan, filling the apartment with acrid smoke. The next day, she had a psychiatrist appointment. While she was gone, I packed her belongings. When she returned, I offered to pay for a hostel for the rest of her 30 days. She accepted without a fight, returned her keys, and left. I thought it was over. Months later, word spread among co-workers. Hannah had spiraled. She stopped taking her meds entirely. One night in her new apartment, she set fire to her belongings, believing she had to burn away the evil to save her family. When neighbors tried to help, she resisted, pouring alcohol into the flames to make it worse. She was arrested for aggravated arson. Last I heard, she was transferred to a long-term psychiatric facility. Ironically, the same type of place where we'd once worked side by side. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I hadn't kicked her out when I did. When I close my eyes at night, I still see her, standing in my doorway, silent, hair hanging in her face, a knife glinting at her side. And I wonder if my cats, who hid from her long before I understood why, had sensed the danger all along. I was 17 when I got my first real paycheck. Up until then, I had scraped together money the usual teenage ways. babysitting for neighbors, mowing lawns for 20 bucks a yard, helping my aunt wipe down counters at her tiny diner on weekends. But those were quick cash jobs. This felt different. I still remember the weight of the crisp W-2 form in my hands, my signature scrawled at the bottom of the hiring packet. For the first time in my life, I was an official employee. My mom even took a picture of me in my stiff navy vest, name badge pinned crookedly to my chest, standing in front of our porch like I'd just enlisted for something bigger than myself. I got hired at Walmart, I told my parents proudly. It wasn't glamorous, but it was independence, my first real step into the adult world. The store was on Main Street in Middletown, Ohio, 15 minutes from my house if you hit the lights right. It wasn't the biggest Walmart in the county, but it was busy. Always busy. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, checkout scanners beeped constantly, intercom announcements cut through the air, and shopping carts rattled over the tiles. It was chaos, but it was also routine. I got placed in the bakery section. Compared to the front registers, it was calmer. My job was simple. Box donuts, restock bread racks, clean trays, slap price tags on loaves. Sometimes, when I was lucky, I'd get to help decorate cakes. Most of my co-workers were women in their 40s and 50s, kind, chatty, motherly. They'd worked there for years and treated me like a kid sister. I liked that. It made me feel safe, tucked into their world of gossip and laughter while the rest of the store buzzed around us. And then there was Rick. Rick was the delivery driver for the bakery shipments. He wasn't technically one of us, but he was around often enough to feel like part of the team. He was in his mid-50s, thick around the waist with a bald spot under a faded baseball cap. His voice was gravelly, his laugh too loud, and from the very first day he made my skin crawl. "Hey there, sunshine," he said the morning we met. He leaned against the counter, eyes scanning me up and down like I was something on display. "You must be the new hire." I shifted uncomfortably, gripping the donut box in my hands. "Yeah, just started today." He grinned, showing yellowing teeth. "Don't worry. Old Rick'll take good care of you around here." On the surface, the words sounded harmless, but the way he said them, the way his eyes lingered, sent a prickle down my neck. At first, I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe he was just overly friendly. But over the next few weeks, I noticed a pattern. Rick lingered long after his deliveries were done. He'd hang around the bakery, leaning on the racks, chatting with whoever was nearby. His conversations with me always stretched just a little too long. When I'd reach for trays, he'd accidentally block the space, so I had to brush past him. He cracked jokes that weren't appropriate, but laughed them off like they were harmless. One afternoon, while I was mixing icing, he strolled over. "You gonna let me lick the spoon when you're done?" he asked, winking. I gave a tight smile, eyes glued to the bowl. "Pretty sure that's against food safety rules." He chuckled but didn't move, just watched me until I shifted uncomfortably. Another day, while unloading bread racks, he asked, "So you got a boyfriend yet?" I shook my head, keeping my answer short. "No." "You should," he said, leaning closer. "A pretty girl like you shouldn't be alone. Bet the boys at your school are lining up." I forced a polite laugh, wishing he'd walk away. Day after day it was like this. Harmless words on the surface, but always too personal, too invasive. Then came the gifts. On my 17th birthday, Rick showed up with a Walmart bag. "Got you something special," he said, pulling out a t-shirt. It was 2 sizes too small. "Try it on after work," he added. "Send me a picture. Here's my number." He shoved a slip of paper into my hand. My stomach turned. Thanks, but I don't think so." I quickly folded the shirt back. For a flicker of a moment, his smile dropped. Then he chuckled, brushing it off. "Suit yourself." Later, I found out he'd asked one of the decorators for my number. She refused. The next week, he brought concert tickets. "VIP passes," he bragged. "I'll get you in even though it's 21 and up. Just you and me, okay?" My heart pounded. "I can't." "You don't have to tell your parents," he whispered. I stepped back, clutching the counter. I said no. He laughed again, too loud, like it was all a big joke. but his eyes told me it wasn't. I finally worked up the courage to tell my manager, Linda. "He makes me really uncomfortable," I admitted, twisting my hands. "He keeps saying things and giving me stuff, and he asked for pictures." Linda waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, that's just Rick. He's a little much, but he's harmless. Been here for years. Hardest worker we got." I wanted to protest, but the words got stuck in my throat. I was 17. He hadn't technically crossed any legal lines. What could I say? So I went back to work, and every time Rick asked for a hug on his birthday, or offered to sneak me alcohol, or stood too close, I just smiled awkwardly and tried to shrink away. But the dread grew heavier every shift. Then suddenly Rick was gone. His name disappeared from the schedule. His time card slot was empty. Linda called me into the office one afternoon. Her expression was serious this time. "We had to let Rick go," she said. "Why?" My voice trembled. She hesitated, then sighed. "We didn't know. He had a record, a bad one. He lied on his paperwork, and since we didn't run a background check, it slipped through." My stomach dropped. "What kind of record?" Her eyes darkened. "Sex offenses, a conviction for kidnapping a minor back in the 90s, and other charges he never reported." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Apparently," she continued, "he'd been harassing one of our customers during deliveries. When the police got involved, they found multiple violations. He's facing more charges now." I sat frozen. Every moment I'd brushed off, the t-shirt, the tickets, the lingering stares, flashed through my mind like puzzle pieces snapping together. It could have been me. I thought that was the end of it. But a week later, Rick came back. Not in uniform, not for a shift, just there, in the parking lot. He paced near the entrance, muttering to himself. Security told him to leave, he argued. Then someone spotted the handle of a weapon sticking out from under his jacket. The police were called. By the time they arrived, Rick was shouting at the managers, demanding to be let inside. They cuffed him right there on the sidewalk. I wasn't scheduled that night, thank God. But when I heard about it the next day, I couldn't stop shaking. All I could think about was how many times he'd asked me to go somewhere with him. How easily I could have said yes, just once. It's been years since I worked at that Walmart. I've had other jobs since, college, internships, and office gig. But every so often I think about Rick. I think about how my concerns were brushed off as just Rick being Rick. How no one thought to check his background until it was too late. And I think about how close I came to walking into something I would have never escaped. Because predators don't always lunge. They don't always show their teeth right away. Sometimes they linger. Sometimes they joke. Sometimes they stand too close and wait, waiting for the moment someone finally lets their guard down. I had only been working at Walmart for about 3 months when I got moved to overnight inventory. They said I had good energy and didn't complain much. Truth was, I kept quiet because I didn't want to go home. Home was a 1-bedroom trailer outside Grantville I shared with my alcoholic stepdad. Walmart, even at 3 a.m., felt safer. The night shift crew was a weird mix. Victor, a reclusive ex-Marine who barely spoke. Jenna, who spent half her shift vaping in the bathroom. And then there was old Marla, who'd been working at that Walmart for over 20 years. She always had some folktale or warning about parts of the store we weren't supposed to linger in. "The layaway cage," she whispered one night, loading a flatbed. "Never go in there after hours." I laughed it off, thinking she was just being creepy for fun. The layaway cage was a locked-off chain-link area in the very back of receiving, where people's seasonal items and big-ticket electronics got held. It had a padlock, a rolling gate, and no real lighting except a flickering yellow bulb above it. The kind of place that felt stuck in time, or like it had no time at all. But on one night in mid-October, everything changed. We were down 3 people due to the flu going around, and the store manager, Paula, radioed me from the floor. "Need you to pull a couple items from layaway. Keys are in the main office. Customers picking up early tomorrow." It was around 2:15 a.m. when I went back there. The hallway to receiving was darker than usual. I passed the compactor, the broken vending machine, and that always creaking fire door. When I got to the layaway cage, the key worked fine. But the moment I stepped inside, something shifted in the air. I don't mean cold, I mean thick. Like walking into a room where someone had just been screaming. The shelves were lined with forgotten bikes, cracked televisions, weird toys with sun-faded packaging. The cage smelled like dry, rotten mothballs. I found the box I needed, a crock-pot and a kid's Power Ranger costume. But when I turned to leave, I stopped cold. The lock, it was hanging on the outside of the cage now. Shut. I didn't remember closing the gate behind me. "Hello?" I called out, thinking someone was messing with me. Jenna, probably. No answer. I tried the lock. It was sealed tight. No one was in the hallway. That's when I noticed something wrong with the toys. Their heads were turned, all of them, facing me. Plastic eyes staring through wire shelves. Dolls, action figures, even a demented Elmo doll with half its face melted from heat exposure. Every toy's eyes were fixed on me. Glassy, unblinking. And then I heard laughter, not playful laughter. High-pitched, guttural, like a child trying to mimic what they thought laughing sounded like. It came from the back corner of the cage. I stepped slowly toward it, heart pounding. There was a small gap between the boxes of bike helmets. In that narrow space, something crouched. Too small to be an adult, too sharp to be a child. Its arms were long. Its eyes reflected the yellow light, but there were no pupils. Just solid white, like ping-pong balls soaked in milk. It smiled, not with lips, but with teeth thin and too many. I screamed and threw the box at it, but it didn't move, just stared. And then it whispered, "Do you remember me now?" The lights in the back hallway snapped off. I don't remember unlocking the cage. I don't remember how I got out. But I woke up near the compactor, blood on my knuckles and one shoe missing. The layaway gate was wide open, but the inside was empty. The box I was supposed to retrieve was never found. Later, I checked the security footage. The camera facing the cage had gone static at 2:17 a.m. and stayed that way for 46 minutes. When it resumed, I was already lying near the compactor. Nobody believed me, not even Marla. But a week later, she stopped showing up to work. They said she retired without notice. 3 months after that, the entire receiving section was sealed off for remodeling. The layaway cage was dismantled, gone like it never existed. But sometimes, when especially late, I still dream of that voice. "Do you remember me now?" Extended aftermath. 2 weeks after the incident, I started noticing small things, subtle but persistent. The fluorescent lights above my register would flicker only when I walked under them. Entire pallets would be misplaced and later found in the exact spot I swore I'd searched. Once I found a toy from the layaway cage, the melted Elmo, sitting in the men's bathroom perched on the back of the toilet tank. I asked around. No one had seen it. No one admitted to moving it. Victor, the ex-Marine, approached me one night. He never usually said more than 2 words to anyone. "You feel it too?" he asked quietly, eyes scanning the break room like he expected something to burst through the vending machine. I nodded barely. "Been working this shift 8 years, he said. "And that cage, it's not new. Used to be worse, much worse." I wanted to ask more, but Victor never brought it up again. In fact, after that week, he put in for day shift, and then there were the dreams. At first, I chalked it up to stress, nightmares of the cage, the long-armed creature, the toys all watching me, but it evolved. I started dreaming of my childhood, of a trailer not unlike the one I lived in now, of a locked closet I had completely forgotten about, or blocked out, and always that voice. "Do you remember me now?" Eventually, I broke down and visited my mother's grave. I hadn't been there in years. While I stood at her headstone, a breeze picked up, cold, sharp, wrong for July. When I turned to leave, I saw something on the cemetery bench, a Power Ranger costume, still in its Walmart packaging. The receipt inside read, October 18th, 3:02 a.m., my birthday. I haven't been back to the store since, But sometimes I drive past it late at night when the parking lot is empty and the building hums like a sleeping giant. And in the flicker of the outside lights, I swear I still see the outline of a gate where none should exist. And I hear the faintest whisper, "You left me behind." I wasn't supposed to be working that night. It was Jamie's shift, but she called out sick, some kind of stomach bug. They offered me the overtime and I took it without much thought. I was scraping by, divorced, sleeping in my sister's laundry room in Crowley, Arkansas. A few extra bucks meant groceries or gas. I'd only been working nights at that Walmart for 3 weeks. Mostly frozen food inventory and backroom stocking. Quiet work away from customers. I liked it better that way. Just me. The low hum of refrigeration and the occasional crackle of the PA system reminding nobody in particular that the store closed at 11. After midnight, the place changed. The lights flickered more. The security monitors gave off this weird soft whine that you didn't notice until the rest of the world went quiet. The air inside the store always felt sterile, like you weren't supposed to linger too long. But none of that compares to the deli cooler. Even seasoned workers hated it. Some called it the meat tunnel. I never heard anyone linger in there more than they had to. The cooler was this long, narrow space behind the deli prep area, always damp, always colder than it needed to be. I'd walk in and swear the temperature dropped by another 10 degrees just beyond the threshold. The fans made this high, droning sound that never stopped. And there was always a leak in the back corner, drip, 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 that they never bothered fixing. That night I was loading bulk packages of turkey and salami onto the back rack when I heard it. A dragging sound, low, wet, like something heavy being pulled across linoleum, followed by a faint tap, 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 as if fingernails were scratching at a plastic surface. I paused and listened, holding my breath. I thought it might be the rack wheels sticking, or maybe one of the compressors going out again. But the noise didn't come from the machinery. It came from behind the racks, the far corner, a place nobody should have been. I stepped forward cautiously. The cooler lights were flickering again, that stuttered buzz like a failing fluorescent tube. I turned the corner of the rack and nothing. Just metal trays and a mop bucket left halfway full of frozen slush. I exhaled slowly, trying to laugh it off. That's when I saw the handprint, pressed against the frost on the inside of the metal cooler door. Small, 5 fingers, child-sized, and it wasn't there when I walked in. My skin crawled. I looked behind me, nothing but shelves and cold mist. I turned to leave. Bang! The cooler door behind me shuddered hard. Something had slammed it from the outside. I spun, heart pounding, but saw no one through the tiny window. Then, the lights dimmed. Just for a second, like something had drawn power from the entire back line, and I heard a voice, faint, warbled, like it came through 6 inches of steel. A low, breathy syllable. "My." I froze. Not a voice you'd expect to hear in a meat cooler. Not a cry, not a scream. More like the air escaping lungs that had been holding onto it far too long. I backed up slowly toward the exit. Then I saw something at the end of the cooler, just past the last flickering light. Movement. At first it was just a shape, low to the ground, pale and crawling like it didn't know how legs worked. I thought maybe it was an animal until it lifted its head. The face, if you could call it that, was white and smooth like freezer-burned ham, with hollow indentations where eyes should have been. But they weren't empty. They were white, frosted over, blind. And then it stood. No sound, no jerky movement, just a slow, unnatural unfolding like it was figuring out how to be vertical. It couldn't have been taller than 4 feet. But the thing that wrecked me the most, worse than the skin, worse than the empty sockets, was the smile. It stretched across the entire face, not pulled by lips, but by skin tugged too tight, as if sewn into place. That thing smiled at me. I turned and ran, nearly slipping on thawing ice. I burst through the cooler door, knocking over a tray of fried chicken someone had left stacked. I didn't stop until I reached the front of the store. I sat in the dark garden center until sunrise, knees pressed to my chest, staring at nothing. The next morning, I told the manager I heard something weird in the cooler. He brushed it off. Said the compressor had been acting up. I asked about the cameras. Reluctantly, he let me look. At 2:49 a.m., the deli cooler camera cut out for exactly 11 seconds. When it came back, a figure stood just inside the door. Not me. It was short, pale, facing the steel, unmoving. Then slowly it turned its head toward the camera. Not its neck, just the head, and it smiled. The manager deleted the footage without a word. Told me I probably needed rest, said I'd been working too many hours. But a week later, I caught Eric, the assistant manager, staring at the cooler's sealed door, just whispering to himself. When I asked him what was wrong, he flinched like I'd slapped him. "You saw it," he whispered. "Didn't you?" He wouldn't say more. But that night, I overheard him talking to another overnight associate near the break room. He was saying something about a kid years ago. A delivery door left open, a freezer, a lawsuit covered up. He transferred stores a few days later. I stayed on another month trying to push it out of my mind. Told myself it was sleep deprivation, hallucination, stress. But then the footprints started showing up, tiny barefoot prints, inside the cooler, always around the same time, 2:45 to 3 a.m. No one ever saw them appear, just found them. Even the health inspector came to check for tampering. Then Rena, the morning stalker, told me something that sent chills down my spine. She said she was prepping sandwich trays when she turned and saw a child, a small figure, standing just outside the double doors. Pale skin, no shoes, watching her. She blinked, and it was gone. No one believed her. They wrote her up for leaving the deli early. She quit 2 days later. I finally put in my notice after a night where the cooler opened on its own. I'd locked it, I'm certain. But at 2:48 a.m., I heard the steel hinge creak. I walked to the hallway and saw the door ajar, cold air spilling out, a single handprint pressed onto the glass window. No one was inside. That night, I dreamed I was trapped in the cooler, couldn't move, couldn't speak, and from the back I heard dragging footsteps and the tapping again. Then the voice, right behind me. "Ma!" I woke up screaming and soaked in sweat. It's been 8 months since I left that job. I'm doing landscaping now, outside work. Nothing with steel doors or flickering lights. But sometimes in the early morning frost, I swear I see a small footprint pressed into the ground. And once in the back of a grocery store truck, I smelled cold meat and heard tapping, like fingernails on plastic. I don't shop at Walmart anymore, and I'll never ever walk into a deli cooler again. I always thought the weirdest thing I'd see working at Walmart was someone riding a bicycle through the aisles in pajamas. That was before the incident at the cart corral. I was 24, 6 months out of college, saddled with a film degree and $28,000 in student loans. Walmart's overnight shift in Janesville, Wisconsin wasn't where I thought I'd end up. But my dream job hadn't called, and rent didn't care about dreams. I worked carts and lot maintenance. Rain, sleet, freezing wind. I was the one pushing carts through empty lots while customers slept and managers monitored self-checkout cameras from the warmth of their office. We had one working cart pusher, a beat-up electric mule that whined like a dying animal when overloaded. Most nights I did it by hand. I liked it that way. Quiet, no co-workers breathing down my neck. Just me, some music, and cold air on my face. It happened in early February. Night shift started like any other. I clocked in at 10:57 p.m., joked with Ray at customer service, grabbed my gloves and walkie, and headed out just after 11. It wasn't until around 2:08 a.m. that I noticed something strange. I just brought in a long train of carts and turned back to the main corral near the garden center. That corral was always last. It was poorly lit and backed up to a patch of trees that locals swore was haunted even before Walmart paved over it. I usually kept my head down and moved fast when I hit that part of the lot. But this time, something made me stop. There was a figure inside the corral, crouched, bare-chested, trembling. His back to me, huddled against the rear wall like he was shielding something. At first I thought it was a drunk or a lost transient. I'd seen a few over the months, especially during cold snaps. But this was different. He wasn't mumbling or rocking. He was perfectly still, like he was frozen but not by the cold. "Hey, sir, you all right?" I called out. No answer. I stepped closer. "Hey, Walmart's closed. You can't be here." Still nothing. I moved a few feet closer, ready to bolt if he twitched. That's when I noticed it, a porcelain doll cradled in his arms. It was old, cracked, dirty, dressed in faded gingham. The eyes were wide open with those unsettling black pupils that seemed painted too deeply into the sockets. He was rocking it, but not in a soothing way, more like a nervous tick, back and forth, with barely any movement from his head or body. I reached for my walkie. "Ray, you near the front? There's someone out in the cart corral by garden, not responding, might need police." Nothing, just static. I looked back at the man. He was standing now, still holding the doll, still silent. But now his head was tilted back. Chin lifted toward the black sky, mouth gaping. That gaping mouth. I still see it in dreams. Then he bent forward sharply, like his spine folded in the middle. He turned toward me. And that's when I saw his eyes. They weren't normal, weren't even human. They were solid black, not just the irises, but the sclera too, like polished stones, no reflection, no life. He opened his mouth and something came out, but it wasn't speech. It was like backward audio, distorted and garbled. A low, droning growl that vibrated in my chest. Not loud, but heavy, like it carried weight. The doll fell to the pavement with a sharp crack. I flinched. Then he ran. Not a drunken shuffle, not a human run. He charged like an animal. Bare feet slapping the icy asphalt, limbs flailing wrong. I turned and sprinted toward the employee entrance, fumbling with my badge, hands trembling so badly I could barely swipe it. By the time I got inside, I slammed the door behind me and collapsed against it, heart trying to beat out of my chest. I waited for a knock, or banging, or even silence, but nothing followed. 10 minutes later, Ray found me huddled behind the vending machine, holding a flashlight like a weapon. He didn't laugh, didn't mock. He just said, "You look like you saw a ghost." I told him what happened, word for word. His face went pale, and I remember him whispering, "Shit." That's not the first time someone's seen him. That stopped me cold. Ray explained that 2 other night employees, one from 2018, the other back in 2013, had quit after seeing a figure in or near the cart corral holding a doll. Both had breakdowns shortly after. One moved to Indiana. The other, well, apparently she still lives in Janesville but refuses to go near the east side of town. Management never spoke about it. When we checked the cameras from that night, the feeds were dead. Every angle pointed toward the cart corral from 2:02 to 2:07 a.m. was just static. Not a single frame. But here's the kicker. When the tech team tried to reboot the recorder, the screen flashed one frame, just one, before going dark. It was the inside of the corral, empty, except for the doll, lying in the center, face up. And around it, in what looked like ash, were small handprints. Too small to be an adult. I quit 2 days later, packed up, moved south, and haven't touched a Walmart since. But some nights, especially when snow begins to fall, I dream I'm back in that lot. And I hear wheels turning, doll eyes clicking, a whisper in reverse that I'm pretty sure's calling my name. They say family comes first. But when your family is fractured, sometimes it's the thing you fear most. I was 19 the night everything went wrong. Just a kid myself, really. My dad had passed that spring from a sudden heart attack, and my mom, well, she'd left us years before that. That left me and Lily, my 9-year-old sister, stuck in a half-abandoned duplex on the south side of Clarksville, Tennessee. I was trying to make ends meet working overnight stock shifts at Walmart on Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. It wasn't glamorous. Frozen foods, dry pantry, and mopping up spilled soda in aisle 5. But it was stable. And in our world, stability was rare. That night was supposed to be like any other. I had prepped Lily's dinner, laid out her pajamas, and scheduled a sitter to show up by 10:45 p.m. But 10:45 came and went. No sitter. I called 3 times, straight to voicemail. By 11 p.m., I had no choice. "I'll take you with me," I told Lily, grabbing her coat and backpack. "You'll sleep in the break room. Just for a few hours, I'll come check on you. You'll be safe." She looked up at me with those soft hazel eyes, a little unsure but trusting. Always trusting. She clutched her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Buttons, a dirty old thing with one button eye and chewed-off ears. We slipped through the back entrance. I tucked her onto the worn faux leather couch in the employee lounge with a spare hoodie as a blanket and Mr. Buttons tucked under her chin. "I'll be back in a bit," I said, kissing her forehead. "Don't open the door for anyone but me." She nodded and curled up like a kitten, out cold in minutes. I clocked in at 11:27 p.m., stomach knotted with guilt. Bryce, the assistant night manager, barely looked up. "You look wired," he muttered, punching numbers into his tablet. "Didn't sleep," I lied. The night dragged, stocking canned beans, answering a customer's question about air fryer wattage at midnight. Routine, mundane, predictable, until 12:17 a.m. That's when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. Incoming call. Grandma Marlene. I felt my heart drop. We hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years, not since the day she showed up at Lily's school, tried to take her during recess, and told the staff I was unfit. She was confused, paranoid. Her eyes darted like they were scanning invisible threats. They issued a protective order. We hadn't heard from her since. I let the call ring out. My hands were shaking. That's when the front buzzer went off. Bryce looked up. "You expecting someone?" "No," I said instantly. He gestured to the security monitor mounted over the side desk. I walked over and froze. There, under the cold floodlights outside, stood Grandma Marlene. She wasn't wearing shoes. Her nightgown was filthy, torn at the hem. Her gray hair hung in clumps like straw. Her expression was blank. But her hands... She was holding something. Mr. Buttons, by the ear, dangling. My stomach dropped so hard I nearly threw up. I ran, sprinted through the store, down the long corridor, straight to the break room. Lily was still there, safe, asleep. Mr. Buttons, however, was gone. I stood over her, chest heaving. I scanned the break room, nothing. No broken windows, no open vents, no sound. How the hell did she get the rabbit? I gently shook Lily. She stirred groggily. "What's wrong?" she whispered. "Where's Mr. Buttons, baby?" Her face scrunched. I was hugging him. He was right here. More confusion than fear. She hadn't noticed. A cold sweat broke out on my neck. I radioed Bryce. "She's out front, my grandma. She's not supposed to be near us. You need to lock every door and call security." "Already on it," Bryce said. "But you should know something else. She's not outside anymore." I stared at the radio. "What do you mean?" "She vanished. Checked all 3 cams, gone." Then, knock, knock, knock. It came from the employee exit, a hollow, sharp sound. Bryce said, "That's her. I'll go check." "No, don't open anything. She's not right in the head. Just wait." He didn't listen. I grabbed Lily and rushed us into the employee bathroom. Solid steel door, lockable from the inside. I turned the latch, then leaned against the sink, breathing hard. Lily clung to me, her face in my chest. The building fell quiet. Too quiet. Then came the singing. It echoed faintly through the air vent overhead. "Lily, Lily, little bird, can't you fly away?" I froze. That was her lullaby. The same one she used to hum years ago before everything fell apart. When Lily was a baby, Marlene would rock her to sleep with that exact melody. Lily started shaking in my arms. "She's here," she whispered. "She said she'd find me again." "What? When did she say that?" Lily looked up at me. "She told me last night. In my dream. She said she missed me. She said Mr. Buttons missed me too. The vent above us made a soft creak. A shadow passed behind the grate. I reached for my box cutter, hands trembling. It was the only thing I had. Then my phone buzzed again. One new photo message from Grandma Marlene. It was a picture of Mr. Buttons, lying on the floor of Walmart's toy aisle. Behind him, just barely visible in the blurry background, was a foot, bare, pale, cracked. I radioed Bryce again, static. I tried again, still nothing. "Stay here," I told Lily, unlocking the door. "No!" she cried, gripping my arm. "I'll be right back." I ran through the back halls, grabbing a flashlight from the janitor's cart as I passed. Every aisle was dark and silent. Then I saw it. Aisle 14, toys and plushes. There, under the lowest shelf, was Mr. Buttons. I crouched slowly, grabbed him, turned around, and there she was, standing at the end of the aisle, in the dark, Marlene. Her eyes were glassy like marbles left in a freezer. Her smile was wide, too wide, her skin pale, almost bluish. "You left her all alone," she whispered. "Again." I stepped back, heart slamming in my chest. "You're not supposed to be here," I said. "You need help." She didn't move. I heard her crying through the walls, through the vents. She told me how cold she was, how lonely. "You don't take care of her." Then she vanished. Just flickered away. Gone. I didn't wait. I ran back to the bathroom. Lily was still there, but her eyes were wide, staring at the ceiling. "What's wrong?" I asked. She pointed. On the inside of the air vent, scratched into the metal, were 5 words. "She is safer with me." Cops showed up 12 minutes later. They swept the store, no sign of Marlene. They checked the outside cameras. They never caught her entering or leaving. They reviewed the inside footage. Nothing. Aisle 14 was empty. Break room was untouched, except in one still frame for exactly 1 second, a pale face could be seen peering through the break room door's small window. Eyes wide, mouth smiling, no shoes. I don't talk about that night much. Thought about turning it over to the FBI, the local PD, hell, even a podcast. But I don't, because if he's still out there, I don't want him to know I kept it. He might not care about policies, cameras, or security doors, but he seems to care who's watching. And maybe, just maybe, he still wants to be seen. It's been over a year since I left Walmart. I work loading docks in Scranton now. Quiet shifts, steel-toe boots, no break room naps, no unlocked doors. I keep to myself, don't drink, don't ask questions I'm not ready to answer. But I still dream about that night. I still wonder if he's out there pulling the same act somewhere else. Charming smile, old TV box, another dusty mugshot that no one believes. Maybe I was a test. Maybe I was the first who noticed. Whatever the case, I learned one thing. Evil doesn't always announce itself with rage or noise. Sometimes it smiles, it whispers, it hands you a fake return and watches you sleep. After the breakup, I swore I'd never look back. But when Tampa finally spit me out with nothing but a suitcase, 2 maxed out cards, and a lease termination, home was all I had left. Lakeland hadn't changed much. Still sleepy, still humid. The roads were wide, the people friendly enough, and the Walmart Supercenter off Highway 98 still ran its graveyard shift like a second heartbeat for the town's insomniacs and night crawlers. I got the job 2 weeks after I moved back in with my mom. Night cashier, self-checkout, simple work, quiet. Exactly what I needed. I didn't want attention. I didn't want small talk. I just wanted to exist under the fluorescent lights, with the beeps of scanned cereal boxes and the occasional "ma'am, this won't scan," breaking the silence. Most nights blurred together. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. like a soft fog. Tired nurses, twitchy teenagers, truckers grabbing microwave burritos. By 12:30, the store got still. I played true crime podcasts on my breaks. Oddly comforting. The grisly stories made me feel prepared. I always figured if something weird ever happened, I'd be ready. But I wasn't. That Sunday started normal. That Sunday started normal. Past midnight, the store dipped into its quiet lull. I was restocking gum at the register when I saw her. She walked in fast, late 30s maybe, wearing a Walmart vest but not one of ours. Outdated logo, faded print, no barcode on her badge. Something was off. She came straight to me. "Pick up for the Brensons," she said. No smile. Her hair was damp like she'd just stepped out of a downpour, but it hadn't rained in days. "Do you have an order number?" I asked. She paused, fingers fidgeted at her side. Then without a word, she turned and walked toward the back, toward the stockroom, marked employees only. She vanished into the hallway like she knew exactly where she was going. Something in my gut twisted. I pressed the call button on my store radio. "Victor to self-check, come in." No response. "Hey Vic, you around?" Got a customer heading to the back without clearance. Silence. I looked at the hallway. Those doors weren't supposed to open without clearance. Most online orders were handled at the front or brought out by staff. I hesitated. I should have just stayed put. Let someone else deal with it. But curiosity pulls at your feet. I stepped toward the stockroom. The lights overhead flickered. It smelled faintly of cardboard and cleaning chemicals. Then I heard it, breathing, but not hers. Heavy, uneven, bigger. He stepped out from the walk-in freezer. Walmart cap, pushing a cart. Tall, late 40s, thick beard, stiff expression. No name badge, no recognition. He didn't acknowledge me. Just wheeled the cart, sealed boxes stacked high, right past me like he owned the place. Then the woman reappeared, coat zipped high, something bulging under it. That's when I moved. I hit the emergency alert on my store radio. 2 quick taps, but it hissed, static. Panicked, I reached for my phone, gone. My apron was empty, I saw it then. On the floor, back by the freezer, screen face up and lit. How had I not noticed? I stepped toward it, heart hammering, and a shopping cart rolled down the aisle by itself. No one pushing it, from the direction they'd gone. But they were gone, not out the front, not through checkout, just gone. I grabbed my phone and bolted back to the registers. The store was dead silent. No customers, no Victor, no music playing from overhead speakers. Just the dull hum of the AC and the occasional creak of metal shelves. I debated calling 911. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe she had clearance. Maybe he was a fill-in, but I knew better. So I made the call. 911, what's your emergency? This is Claire Houston. I'm working at the Walmart on 98 North in Lakeland. There's been a break-in or something. 2 individuals entered a restricted area. One of them isn't on the cameras. My radio's dead. I think they took something. The dispatcher stayed on the line. She told me to wait near the front. Stay safe. The police arrived in under 6 minutes, blue lights strobing across the parking lot like lightning bugs. I let them in. We went to the back. The freezer was open, the boxes were gone. Security footage confirmed most of what I said. The woman had entered alone. No male followed her. But you could see me backing away, talking to no one. "He's not there," one officer said, leaning toward the monitor. "You're talking to someone, but no one's in the frame." They checked the logs. No order from the Brensons, no pickup scheduled. Victor finally called back, said he stepped outside for a smoke break. Didn't hear a thing. Walmart corporate claimed the camera system was undergoing software updates. Frames were missing, corrupted. I quit the next week, but the worst came 2 months later. Tuesday afternoon, I was home, watching TV in sweatpants, just trying to feel normal. My phone buzzed, unknown number, 1 message. I tapped it open. "Thanks for not interfering." Attached was a photo of me, standing behind the self-checkout station, taken from the candy rack aisle. My head was down, clearly mid-scan, but my badge was visible. Timestamp, 12:32 a.m., that Sunday. I stared at the image for a long time. My hands shook. My mouth went dry. How? Who took it? There had been no customers nearby, no co-workers, no one on the cameras. I showed my mom. She said to call the police, but what would I say? It wasn't a threat, just a message, a thank you, as if I'd done them a favor. I deleted the message. But I still think about it. How long had that person stood there watching me? And why did they let me go? I work at a bookstore now, quiet, cozy. No 24-hour fluorescent nightmares. But I'm different, more alert, always watching the corners of rooms. I don't wear earbuds in public. I keep my phone clipped to my belt. I lock my bedroom door at night, even at home. Sometimes I dream about that night. But the dreams always change. The man in the cap becomes faceless. The woman walks backward through the store. The carts move on their own, clattering down empty aisles. Other times it's the smell of cold air and cardboard that wakes me, like the freezer was never closed. One night I drove past that Walmart again. I don't know why. The parking lot was mostly empty, except for one thing, a cart near the garden center, full of sealed boxes, no one nearby. I didn't stop. I didn't want to know. Trust your instincts. When something feels off, it probably is. In a world full of distractions and false signals, your gut might be the last honest warning you'll get.